Joining me today is a familiar face for CHVN listeners. I've got Christy Fabbri. You were a former on-air here at CHVN, and you have one specific memory that I'm sure stands out to you. So we're going to kind of talk about that. But before we get into that, maybe I'd love to share, or for you to share how you ended up at CHVN, kind of what that journey for you looked like.
Hi, yeah, sure, I will. It's kind of the way that I started here was sort of a journey. I came in and I didn't know anything about radio. I had an acting background. I was a hairdresser at the time, and I had snapped my wrist on a frozen door. It's a very Winnipeg story in the middle of winter. And so I was doing someone's hair that worked here, and she's like, "You have an acting background. You should just come in and apply." So I did, and I interviewed with Terry Van Veen, and he called me on the way home, and he said, "You're hired. Can you start tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure." And I came in and I thought, I'm going to learn all the things about radio, how to do everything. And he said, "Okay, you're hosting a show tonight. It's from 6 p.m. to midnight, and go have fun." And I did not know what I was doing. I put on like a radio voice and and then over the years I kind of learned the ropes, and that's how I got here.
Yeah. Wow. Just get thrown right into it, right? No, not really much preparation or anything leading up to it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you had one moment where you were just hosting a show, probably just a normal day, but you were 9 months pregnant.
I was.
And then something happened. Can you take the story from there?
Sure. I was actually standing right where you're standing now, and I started having contractions, and I was sure it was Braxton Hicks. It was my second baby, So I went to my office and I sat down and I did some deep breathing, and a couple people came in and said, "Hey, we think you should probably go home because you look like you're in labor." And I said, "You guys, I've been down this road before. This is Braxton Hicks." And they said, "Well, how about you just go home?" And I said, "Okay, but I'll be back tomorrow." And so I left my show, and shortly after I went to the hospital, and Grace was born that night.
And I'd love if you could just kind of walk me through that, like you said, you thought it was just Braxton Hicks. Like you were like, okay, whatever. Let's just get through it, finish what I'm doing. But what's going through your head? Because I'm sure you're in a lot of pain, discomfort.
I was just kind of like, I'm in the middle of a show. I got to get this done. I'm working. But she was a fun little surprise. She was a couple weeks early, and she's always been my radio baby.
And what was some of the reactions maybe when you're texting or calling coworkers after she's born? You're like, okay, you were right. This happened.
I did have to call, and I said, I unfortunately will not be into work tomorrow. I'm in the hospital. And they were so great. I think they actually even came up to visit me, and we were all just like one big family here. So I think about my time here all the time.
And you mentioned that she's your radio baby, and off the air you're saying that she does some voice acting work, which you're now into. So would you say that she kind of has a future as maybe a radio host? Maybe she'll be standing here one day?
Maybe that the fact that I went into labor in here had something to do with it. But yeah, all my kids are into voice acting now, and it's kind of a family biz.
And how did that kind of make the switch, going from radio to voice acting? I'm sure there's similarities, obviously. You're using your voice, but what did that look like?
I always loved when I got to record commercials here. That was one of my favorite things to do. And I sort of just started a business on the side, worked on it after hours. And then I got to a point where I was like, I think I actually could do this as my career. And it was such a hard decision to leave because I just loved my time here. But I just really felt like God was like, this is your path. This is what you need to do. And it was kind of like jumping off a cliff and praying that my parachute would open. Yeah. And it did. And it's been about 11 years now of running my voiceover business. So
wow. And in your time here at CHVN, is there maybe one highlight, one fond memory that kind of sticks out to you, or like your favorite part of the job?
Oh, I mean, the people. The people were great. We would have soup club. Everybody would bring in soup. I was pregnant for a lot of my time here, pregnant or on maternity leave, and we did something called Stump the Bump, where they would blindfold me, and I'd have to try to tell the difference between two foods. That was a favorite. And then, going into labor on the air, that's up there.
All right. So when you're talking about soup, what was the best soup you had at your time at CHVN? That's the important questions.
Anything Jeff Funk made. A good potato bacon it's got my heart for sure.
I mean, I think that's got a lot of people's heart. Christy, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me and, kind of reminisce down memory lane.
Thanks for having me.